mute your fucking mic. Mute your fucking mic. No.
Apostate Radio.
Oh God.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Every week.
I love the new musician guy we got doing the intros, man. He's phenomenal. Like little beautiful songs he does in the beginning.
Every week. Every week.
I don't know where you got that guy, but he's great.
I you know what? Thanks StreamYard. Thanks StreamYard, because they changed the music on that, and now it's this upbeat and fancy. Oh God, I don't know. Anyways, good evening. Ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, dogs and cats. Welcome to another championship edition of Apostate Radio. I am your host, Isaiah Carter, and as ever, coming to you live from the County of Kings, the borough of the People's Republic of Brooklyn. And it's looking more and more like the People's Republic of Brooklyn by the day. Joined as ever by my man, Mr. Nostra Chavez, from the land of cold Pete's, red trains and cold Pete's.
Pizza.
Yeah. and you know what I'm talking about with the red trains.
Oh, it's Metro North, man.
Yeah, man. I was on one today, actually.
Oh yeah, where are you going? Where'd you go?
No. Well, okay. So where Corrine lives, she lives by a lot. Wakefield is like by a whole bunch of Metro North stations. Like she lives right in between the New Haven line and the Harlem line. So there's one right by her house, which is off the Harlem line, and then if she drives up, no, Wakefield.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that the Stamford line, or what is that? Because I know New Haven goes directly from Harlem to Stamford, and then it keeps going.
Okay, so there are three main lines to Metro North. You have the Harlem line that basically runs up the gut of Westchester County.
Yeah. And
then you have the Hudson line, which runs along the Hudson River. It's like Western Yonkers, Dobbs Ferry, goes all the way up to Poughkeepsie, and then your line, the New Haven line that goes up to New Haven, Connecticut, New Haven, Stamford, and a whole bunch of other places.
Yeah.
So
beautiful Mary, Connecticut.
Yeah. I guess. I could never. I went to Danbury one time.
Good old
Danbury. Oh my God. Danbury's just like, do you have anything to do up there? Like, I don't know. Anyways,
no. We don't. There's nothing to do here at all.
Jesus. Well,
that's okay.
A gentleman tonight is a very special episode, ladies and gentlemen. We have a gentleman who knows what it's like to live out in the middle of nowhere. He is one of my best friends. I can honestly say that. He is a guy who I have a lot of respect for one very important reason. He bet on himself and he won. And he beat many, many odds. His first book, he chronicled that from Black victim to Black victor. And just a few weeks ago, actually this week, he just debuted a brand new book, which I am happily in the possession of, The Children We Left Behind. How a Western culture rationalizes family separation and ignores the pain of child neglect. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you the incomparable, the Black Tim Pool, Mr. Adam Coleman.
Indeed. And let's remember again, we have to remember His Excellency.
His Excellent, yes.
The president of the Republic, the great nation of Ain't Blackistan.
Of Ain't Blackistan. A lot of it. A lot of us are there these days, my brother.
Well, things aren't going that great for Ain't Blackistan since we lost U.S. aid. So
that's pretty good.
Yo. Oh man.
I bet.
How much were you getting? You know.
that's
you gonna keep that under the hat?
We're gonna keep that on the low. We can't.
I got you.
Can't disclose that.
Well, Adam, it is a pleasure to have you back on the show, my brother. You graced our show before with a Super Bowl on our Super Bowl special, and you dropped, for those of you who may or may not remember, this man dropped one of the greatest rants of all time. But we're taking a serious note. But before I get started, before I get started with any of the festivities, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe. We are live on X, we are live on YouTube, we're live on Rumble. We are growing as best as we possibly can. You can also support the show should you feel inclined at buymeacoffee.com/apostate radio.
You guys got to support us, man. I'm wearing underwear with holes in them. So, do something to help me out.
Yeah. And I've got, matter of fact, I need new pants. Anyways,
I need new drawers, man. We need to do like the GoFundMe drawers fund for the Apostate Radio boys.
Yeah, right. Yes, please support us any way you can. buymeacoffee.com/apostate radio. Follow us also on X and all the socials at Isaiah L. Carter and Nostra Chavez. All right, Adam, let's get to you, brother. This book is heavier than I am. And I'm a big motherfucker.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. This is a deep look into your upbringing. And I have to admit, Karine and I, and my fiance and I were talking about this book, and I'll give you some of my own thoughts about it. But I want to add, but before I get into any of that, what made you want to write this book? Like, this is heavy stuff, man. This couldn't have been easy.
It's not as hard as some people think, because I've resolved much of the things that I write about. So, through decades of reflection, therapy, all that stuff, I made it to a point where I could actually talk about it and write about it without completely breaking down and stuff like that. I think the hardest point especially over the past 4 or 5 years, was to be able to write about going to the mental hospital. Because I thought about doing that with the first book, but one, it felt out of place. And two, I don't think I was ready to write about it. So I did not do that. But what made me write about it was because I've been writing since, I've writing for different publications since 2021. And a common theme will come up, which was like family separation, or at least I would see like that being the root of these big social issues that would constantly come up. So I've written some pieces about mass shooting events, and it was always interesting because some information would come out about their home life, about their parents, and it was always these kids coming from dysfunction, from family separation, every single time. And the statistics are there as well. I actually didn't. I don't think I included that about the mass shooters in the book, but I think the point was clear that family separation, whether it be through divorce or single parenthood, has a massive impact on children, and those children grow up to be adults, and those adults affect our society in various ways. So that was really what motivated me to write about it because I kept bringing it up, um, and I figured sometimes you need a good story to make people kind of visualize the point you're trying to make. So obviously I can write an article, but even with that information, it's limited. I don't know these people personally to write about their emotions and what they went through, but I know my story. So I figured I would take the time and actually write about it.
Wow.
Did you find the book, writing the book, therapeutic at all, Adam?
Not a little bit on certain parts, maybe, but I think the biggest thing was that it opened the door to conversation with my family.
Mm.
Um, to ask questions because there were a couple times I would speak to my mom to clarify, like, is my memory correct? Does it match up
Mm.
with what you remember? That kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, and we would have a longer dialogue about what was going on. Even after the book came out, Isaiah, you saw my mom was there at the party.
Yeah, I
Um,
got to meet her.
yeah, and we had a longer discussion because she read some of it, and obviously, like, um, it's a heavy book, and there are a lot of things within the book that my mother doesn't know. Whether it's how I
Mm.
felt or what I experienced, I just never told her.
Wow.
Um, so for her, I get it. Like if my son was going through a bunch of stuff and I read about it, like I would feel hurt, like maybe I did something wrong or I didn't do enough. Um, but I tried my best to write about it while still um, honoring my mother
Mm.
because there are certain sacrifices and certain things that she went through um, to take care of us. And as I've gotten older, I understand my mother a lot more than when I was even just a young adult, um, holding on to certain things. And so that's why towards the end, I talk about forgiveness. I think it's important
Mm.
to forgive and let those things go. And forgiveness is for you, not the other person. Is to
Mm.
release that
Yes.
hatred and anger.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then once you release that, if it's possible, maybe there's an opportunity for you to start a new relationship with someone.
Mm. This has been the book is quite heavy for me because this is something that has awakened, like, this is how did I put this? Or how did, like, this book was less of a mirror. It's not a mirror for me. This
Mhm.
is a window into your life because, I was, by the grace of God, blessed to have both parents, right? Like my
Mhm.
like my dad is alive and well right now. I call him up right now, and the man is present for not only us, his five sons, but also his seven grandchildren.
Mhm.
And so for a guy like me who has, like, I could never understand what you went through throughout your childhood, like, not even knowing, like with all these unresolved questions, and this guy who basically didn't want anything, to do with you. Like, how did you do that growing up, man? Like, that
Um,
that was, oh man.
well, I mean, just like anything, you survive, and sometimes I think we confuse surviving with thriving. Just because you made it on the other side doesn't mean that you made it unscathed.
Mm,
Um, I made a lot of mistakes. I struggled a lot. I struggled with rejection, low self esteem, and all of those things, and it carried over into different aspects of my life. Um,
mm,
you know, there was a period where I had panic attacks. Um, in my late 20s. And actually, from those panic attacks, led for me to go into therapy, which was actually really, really beneficial because it was like the first time in a long time, or if ever, at that point, that I was able to like talk about these things, which I didn't realize were bothering me until I started talking about it. It's like the floodgates of emotions came through.
You would just
Um,
held them in for most of your life.
yeah, yeah, and what people don't understand, because obviously, like Isaiah, actually both of you guys have seen me online, and that's how we first met. But if
Mhm.
you understand, like the vast majority of my life, in comparison to what I'm doing now, this is incredibly abnormal for me. I am a quiet, reclusive type of person. I keep to myself. I don't tell people my opinions. And I personally, I just thought no one cares what I think, anyways. So I have my ideas. I paid attention to politics. I might talk to like a small circle of people about how I felt. I didn't use social media. I didn't blast to the world my thoughts and things like that. I just kept it to myself. So for me to be a public figure, to be scrutinized, to be yelled at and praised at all the same time is abnormal for me.
Mm.
But it's also a sign of growth. The fact that I was someone maybe 6 or so years ago, 7 years ago,
Mhm.
who was struggling with social anxiety, maybe a little bit longer than that. COVID messes up my timeline, but like my early 30s, where I was still dealing with some anxiety. Um, for me to stand up and speak in front of a crowd of 600, um, and do fine and get a standing ovation is incredibly abnormal for me.
Mm.
Um, so I everybody's like you're soft spoken. I've always been this way. I've always been relatively quiet, relatively introverted, and I just kind of keep to myself. Um, I think I've been this way basically since being locked away when I was 8. Um, I just
Jesus.
learned to just keep how I felt to me, and just kind of kept my head down and just kind of keep it moving. So I wasn't a outwardly emotional kid, very much so just like, kind of a deadpan based child. Um, unless I felt really, really comfortable around people. Um, other than that, I would stay quiet. So if I enter a new environment, I sit there and I stay quiet, observe until I feel comfortable, which usually take me a while to feel that way.
Mm. Yeah, it's
Wow.
interesting.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got a lot of questions for Adam I was thinking about,
Mhm.
but one I want to ask, and maybe I don't know if this is a dumb question or an obvious question, but it's like, Isaiah and I, Isaiah, both your parents are still together, right?
Oh, 40, it'll be 45 years
Yeah, and
in July.
my parents, I think it's also been about 40 years, something like that. Been stayed together, even though they've threatened a divorce a million times. But it's one of those relationships like every freaking week. And I got used to it pretty early on. Like, it didn't really bother me too much. Like I was, I don't know if it's just because I think it's partly my personality, but partly probably because I just realized I'm like, they say this every week for like the last couple of years. So that's not gonna. I don't know if it's really gonna happen. I just didn't worry about it. Maybe it might have affected my brothers differently. But so we don't know, like Isaiah kind of intimated, I think is the word. We don't really know what it's like to be in your shoes, right? And a lot of people don't. A lot of people kind of do or have some idea. Um, what do you think? Because I feel like there's like an outsized like effect that it has on a kid's life when like a dad's not involved, or
Yeah.
even if there's a divorce in your teenage years. I've seen kids like, when their divorce happens at 12, 13, 14-year-olds, and like they were good in school their whole lives. And then suddenly dad leaves, there's a divorce, and then like they just rebel and fail in class and all this stuff happens. And it seems like, you figure, especially, and if you're a young boy, that when this happens, or you're just always been a part of with a single mother and that's it. You figure like, oh, you'd probably be able to adapt to it, right? You'd probably be able to get used to it. It's just life, whatever. And of course there's some hardships because there's no dad around, and you only have one parent. but it's like it seems to really have an effect on people, on both men and women, boys and girls. Like, you know, the stereotype is girls are, you know, if the girl becomes a stripper or porn star, a lot of times it's because dad wasn't around, right? And for boys, it's like frequently that leads, the statistics are clear, leads to like dropouts, crime, all these different things that happen. That both, I'm sure both sexes have different mental disorders and stuff like that that happen. Why do you think, as a person who experienced this, why do you think that like it affects you so deeply? You know what I mean? Like what is going on in your brain and your body as a young boy and a teenager, you think?
Well, so I can answer your question.
And I'm
Are
not,
you
by the way,
talking about?
I hope you know I'm not like I'm not criticizing you or being like, you know, you shouldn't be taking it so hard. This is a fact that people usually take it very hard.
Indeed.
So
Yeah.
I'm just
Indeed.
curious. So like what, put yourself, I mean, I'm sure your book does this. I didn't get to read your book yet, and I am going to read it. But I'm sure you explain this in your book to a degree. But like what is it like to emotionally in your soul to go through that? And why do you think it affects kids so much, and then adults, young adults and adults?
So just to make sure I answer
Sure.
you correctly, are you referring to children of divorce, or are you talking about like my situation?
More
of
so
going
your
to a single parent?
situation, but
Okay.
I feel like it's similar to. I mean, it's not completely different from children of a divorce too, because they have similar reactions. But maybe I'm wrong about that. But just more so in your situation, since it's what you've experienced.
Um, I mean, the vast majority have a sense of rejection.
Mm,
Um, I think what people don't, well, a lot of adults don't realize because, you know, and it's not uncommon. Like when you become an adult, you kind of forget what it's like to be a kid. You know, um,
mm,
you remember like the happy moments. If you had a good childhood, you remember the happy moments and the things going to get ice cream and stuff like that. But you don't remember like your emotional understanding.
mm,
Children don't understand um, adult relationship dynamics, so they can't comprehend certain things. Especially when you're a child, like you're watching the world around you, and when you watch, like for me, when I lived in upstate New York, I was in Boy Scouts, and everyone had a dad except for me.
mm.
Like you can't not notice that.
What did that feel like
Uh,
to you? Like that, just that fact
um,
that you're like, man, everybody's got a dad but me. Like that, where you were just like, man, that sucks. I don't have a dad. Or how'd that feel to you?
if I really thought about it, I think sometimes it just becomes what it is and
Mm,
normal, and then sometimes it hits you and you're thinking about it.
mm,
Um, but as a kid, sometimes I thought like something's wrong with me. Um,
right.
and that's what I'm trying to let people know is like children often put it back on themselves. Whatever is going on with you in your relationship, and for whatever reason, if the father's not around, um, or why you guys get a divorce, children often don't understand, and so all they know is themselves, and so they think that they're part of the reason why they're feeling rejected. They're
Mm,
part of the reason why mommy and daddy don't get along or why they split apart.
yep.
So it's that sense of rejection. I think people underestimate how strong that is when you have that feeling of rejection because it stays with you until you address it. And a
Mm,
lot of people don't address it. They hold on to it. Maybe they think their behavior is it's part of their personality. That's just who I am. But that sense of rejection dictates um, your fears, right? Your relationship fears. So I'll give you an example. I can, because I went through this, I can usually tell based off of when someone's talking about their relationship if they came from a similar situation as me or if they came from a broken home situation. And like a
interesting.
telltale, it's the situations where like I watch um a lot of talk shows and stuff like that. And one thing you'll hear is like someone says, "Oh, he treats me bad. He cheats on me. I caught him 10 times. He's done this. He does." They just give you a laundry list, and then you ask the question, "Well, why are you still with this person?" And they say, "Well, I love him."
Hmm.
So the first part is they don't know what, and this I'm speaking from a female perspective. they don't understand what a healthy male to female interaction looks like. So that's
Mhm.
one. But the second part, see, I love him is sort of true, but that's not the real reason why she stays with him. She stays with him because she's afraid to be alone. She's afraid of being rejected again. So she
Mm.
stays with what is comfortable because that feeling of rejection is so detrimental for her
Yeah.
that she's worried about it. And often what you'll see is those women who are afraid of rejection and afraid of starting that whole thing over, they say stuff like, "I'm gonna hurt him before he hurts me."
Mm.
Right?
Yeah. Hear
They
that a
say
lot.
stuff like that. Or
Mhm.
you'll see the woman who are not just women, but guys too, where they hop from one relationship to the next. So they cheat, for
Yeah.
example. Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
they, like, if it's a woman, often they'll have a guy friend who they're kind of warming up to, and then boom, they drop the guy and then step up to the next guy.
Mm.
And they zero gap in between. And it's because they're afraid of feeling rejected. They're afraid of being alone because they were left alone before when they were children.
Mm.
That is the fear of being alone is something that I'm familiar with.
Mhm.
Um, as a in my dating life, like when I was when I moved up here to New York when I was about 10 years ago. So this is actually my 10th anniversary coming up in June of this year. And I was coming up right after a divorce. After a separation that eventually became a divorce. And the dating game up here was very, very difficult for me because I kept hearing a lot of no's. And the people, the girls I thought who were going to be something, it was like I was still stuck in that whole feeling of what should have been with with the ex-wife. Like she should have come up with me and we were gonna come back up and start back over in New York City and all that kind of stuff. Hearing no a lot and then settling for situationships. That's a neat word. Settling for situation. You and I've talked about this with many times with a couple of with one particular situationship that I was in. Um, so I can relate to that, to that rejection, but
Mhm.
to just keep hearing no and no and no so many times. I mean, what did that do for your psyche, bro?
Um, these are like silent no's, right? So
Mm.
it's no's by action instead of words.
Mhm.
Mm.
Um, and so you start to feel like you're not important. Um, and that's kind of how I felt, and that's what I struggled with. Um, and so I didn't feel good about myself most of the time, and so I put it onto everybody else. And that definitely affected my relationships with women. Um, if there was someone who finally accepted me, I was just like, I was 110% in, right?
Mhm.
Even though there's clearly issues, there's clearly flaws, um, I was afraid of losing that. And so I would put up with it for far too long. Um, and usually they would break up with me because, it was all types of issues. And it's not to say they're the only ones who had issues. I had issues too.
Of course.
Um, so but there was a fear of being left. There's a couple of like serious relationships that I had was I was afraid of that. Like I failed again. And I spent most of my life kind of beating myself down if I did mess up, and messing up is part of life. Like you learn from your failures. Um, but I think the difference if I'm to talk about my son, the difference between what I experienced as a young man versus what my son experiences is that when my son messed up, I was there to be like, it's okay,
Mm,
and talk him through it and kind of keep him going. When I would mess up, there was nobody there to tell me it's okay. Like
mm,
I just wallowed in it, and then I mess up again, and it just kind of spirals from there. Or if things are going okay and then I mess up, and it's like, of course I mess up because I'm a screw up because I've been messing
Mm.
up my entire life. Like it just becomes that kind of
self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's interesting. Do you so did you have any kind of father figure growing up that you can get encouraging? Because I'm sure your mother sometimes told you like, oh, you'll this, it's okay, this stuff happens, you'll get back at it. But it is different coming from as a man, as a young man, as a boy. It's different coming from a male, right? It's different coming from a man, a dad, an uncle, grandfather, your coach, whatever. And it's I think it has a different impact. I'm pretty sure that's the case. So that's quite a thing to be missing in your life.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
also something to keep in mind, like I said, I kept most of my feelings to myself. So if I was messing up,
Mm,
I didn't tell anybody, you
yeah.
know. And we moved around a lot, so I didn't have a whole lot of friends. Like most people live in a general area, so they have childhood friends. I don't really have any childhood friends. My oldest friend that I still talk to this day is from high school.
Mm,
Um, so and basically just like one person. So I didn't have a great circle of support. Um, because we moved a lot. My mom never got married. She really didn't even have any long-term relationships or anything like that. So there was no, mom's boyfriend or stepfather or anything like that that would come around or be involved. At least while I was a kid.
mm,
So my actually, if I'm being completely honest, for quite some time, especially in my teenage years, felt uncomfortable around men. Um,
Mm.
not like I was afraid of men, but I felt inadequate.
mm.
Um,
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
so like
I've seen that
you,
before with people, guys that didn't have dads. Like they could be a little clumsy around men in a way, or a little bit. They're not so sure how to joke around with them as much and stuff. I've seen that quite a bit. And
yeah,
I grew up in a family of a lot of men. Like I had my dad, I had my couple uncles that didn't have kids that would come over all the time and hang out with us. My dad has like 7 brothers. My mom has 2 brothers, and they're all
Yeah.
around. So a lot
yeah,
of men, right? And I had my little brothers. So a lot of
Same thing here.
masculine influence, right?
Same
So
thing
I
here.
feel very comfortable around most men, most types of men, honestly.
Yeah.
But if you don't have any of that, it could be a little scary because guys could be a little abrasive, right? Like they sometimes they just talk shit to each other out of that's how they show love. Is like, oh, look at you, and make fun of you and stuff like that. Oh, look at this idiot, and if you're not used to that, you're like, what? Oh shit, did they not like me? I'm assuming
yeah,
you might have kind of felt that way sometimes.
yeah, or even just like male touch,
Mm,
right? Obviously, like I'm not talking about sexual or anything like that, but I'm just talking
right.
about like
Like a hug,
guy come and
handshake,
hit you on your back,
pat in the back.
that kind of thing. I would flinch or I'd feel uncomfortable because I learned later on about rough and tumble play
Mm,
and why that's important for children, and including boys, is because you get used to an adult male touching you in a
Hmm.
safe way,
Yeah.
and you learn boundaries as a child. I never had that,
mm,
um, so I'm not. I've gotten better, but for quite some time, I was very uncomfortable if a guy would like put his arm around me, that kind of thing, which I know is normal, but
mm.
I'm not used to that. So it's very
Yeah.
uncomfortable for me to have that kind of like that touch, that male touch or the grabbing of the arm, or like I would play baseball and the slapping of the butt and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Never liked it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, there's a lot of stuff.
So
Just
Well,
sometimes there's like the wrestling. Sometimes like guys will kind of punch each other, stuff like that.
yeah,
That
yeah.
happens a lot too with groups of guys.
do you find that? Do you find that still? Do you find yourself still like doing that now at times? Like, because you know me, I'm a hugger. So
me too. I am too. Yeah.
yeah. So have you, like, in the time that we've known each other, have you like kind of felt yourself doing that in like in our interactions, or
No, I would say I'm much better than what I
okay,
was when I was, even like in my 20s. I'm much
like
better with it. And I wouldn't tell you to not do it. I do believe that there's certain things that I have to keep doing because I never experienced it when I was a kid. So
yeah,
it's not to
yeah.
stay away from it, but I actually need more exposure to it.
Right.
So I wouldn't
Mhm.
tell someone to not show like physical affection. Um, but
Mm.
like if I'm completely honest, like my son was like the first man I would consistently hug. If
Mm.
you think about it, the first male.
Mm.
My son would, and even to this day, when I see him, he always gives me a hug, goodbye, and tells me he loves me. And
That's great.
so, you know,
That
even
works
from when he
wonders,
was a
don't
little kid.
it?
That's great. And the funny thing is with guys too, it's like, and I don't know if it's because a lot of times maybe they don't have dads or they do, but I think a lot of men don't hug anyways. Like not all men are huggers. A lot of men
Mhm.
are not like that kind of like physically affectionate or
Yeah.
comfortable with that. So it's not just, I don't think it's just men who don't, didn't have fathers in their lives or something like that. So it is kind of I don't know, it probably depends on what kind of family you were raised in, what kind of people you're around,
Yeah.
and what kind of mate your personality as well.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And yeah, and again, like this is, I mean, I knew I was gonna struggle tonight with this, but like I, th- tonight, like when I think about all the stuff that you never that you didn't get grow, like we're all around the same age,
Mhm.
and I don't know, like this is like I hate to be repetitive, but my background is very similar to Gnosis. I mean, I'm the oldest of 5.
Mm.
And I got my dad, and then we've got like 5 nephews. So the next generation of Carters, are mostly male, and then we got the two, the 2 dear daughters who are sisters. Shout out to Lydia and Vivian. I love you, babies. Um, um, it's just I don't know, dude. It's like when you overcame some pretty insurmountable odds with a level of wisdom that
Mm.
not too many people can come out of. And I want to just share this one little bit, if I may.
Yeah.
This is from chapter 3, and it says, let me see, when we are this was, you're talking about the biological stranger, and he says we are biologically inseparable despite him, your father, choosing to live separately from me. Life isn't fair and will never be fair, but we always have a choice in our actions. So the question remains, why did he give up on me? Was there something wrong with me that I deserved to be thrown away like yesterday's garbage? Or did he simply want to avoid responsibility for his choices made yesterday? When children are left with unanswered questions about their biological stranger, they tend to choose the wrong answers by feeling accountable for their father's behavior. We are abandoned, and yet we feel responsible for our abandonment when we are at our most confused points in life. We often live in denial about the most important man in our lives, straying away from the most obvious answer to our abandonment because it's the harshest one. They preferred being strangers over being your father.
Hmm.
I, you're a fucking hero to me. I'm dead ass, Adam. I've this book has really unlocked a level of respect for you that I'm actually having difficulty expressing. and I know we're doing this live, and there's I oh my God. I again, like, just the like what helped you write that? Like what was like what helped you write this? Like this particular piece in general.
Um, Lots of self-reflection. Um, you know, when I was talking about that the therapist I would go to see, that was in my 20s. But that at least opened me up to psychology and understanding myself and asking questions about myself, um, and, and slowly improving aspects of my life, and getting better. And but it took a lot of self-reflection and honesty and acceptance. I think the most important thing that I've learned, actually two things that I've learned as an adult, is to accept things for what they are. Doesn't mean that it's good, doesn't mean that it's bad, just accept it. You accept things for what they are, and to learn how to forgive. And, to show grace. And so I accepted a long time ago that my father very clearly doesn't want anything to do with me. I detail in the book the last time I talked to him, I was 21, and he died some years ago now. I think it was, mix up the years. It was 2015 or 2016. I can't remember now. But I didn't find out that he died until like a few months later. My mom just Googled his name. And I remember when she called me and she told me, and I didn't feel anything. And it's because I accepted a while ago that my father's not going to call me back. Um, he has no interest, and it was much of the same for my sister. He had a better relationship with her because she would reach out to him more, and she was older, so she has more memories when he was a bit involved when we were very young. Um, Not terribly involved, but a little bit involved. But outside of that, like, I just accepted it. I accepted that this was my position as a child. I also accepted that my father didn't love me. And I think that took as my son got older, I accepted that part later. Because I saw what it does look like to love your child. And over the years I've developed like the definition of love is, because we throw love around. I love you, love you, love you. But what does it actually mean? It means to sacrifice for someone else. That is like a big chunk of love. You love
Yeah.
someone, you'll sacrifice for them. Whether it's time, money, effort, whatever, pride, you know, but you'll sacrifice for them. And I saw that my father didn't sacrifice for me. Um, he
Like
just
not
didn't.
even a little. Not even a little.
The most that my father ever gave me was my first car, which was a 1990 Cavalier. But it was a car that he didn't drive anymore. It was like an old car. Yes, he brought it down from Detroit to New Jersey and gave it to me. So that was my first car. That's the most that my father's ever given me. Um, and so, not to be ungrateful, but that's basically that's basically his mantle. Is that he gave me his old car that he doesn't drive anymore. So I had a first car. Outside of that, he didn't really sacrifice anything. Matter of fact, he probably would have just traded that car in and just gotten it, or sold it on the street and just got, a little bit of cash at the time. So, uh, you know, sure, he sacrificed a little bit of time to bring me the car. But outside of that, my father didn't sacrifice for me. He didn't try. Um, and so, especially as a father, I understand what it looks like when you do sacrifice. I know what it looks like when you take risks, when you do things for other people because you want what's best for them. I My son is I want him to do 10 times better than me. Like, I think he's capable of doing whatever he wants to do. and I root for him nonstop. And I could not imagine treating my son the way that my father treated me, or pretending that I don't exist, or being upset, or being disinterested when I call him, um, or speaking to my son once a year. Like, I just couldn't imagine those things. And so I know that my father didn't love me. Like, but I'm okay with it because I've accepted it. It's not that it's good. I've just accepted for what it is. Once you accept it, you stop trying to expect. You stop expecting that something different will happen. Well, maybe he'll. Well, maybe he'll. My father's dead now. Like, I have no choice but to accept it too. That's
Yeah,
it. My father did not love me. It's not my fault that he didn't love me.
it is not.
Um, and I, when someone has gone through what I've gone through, and there's lots of kids who've gone through something similar, you have to accept these things, because otherwise they'll eat you up and you start to blame yourself, which is the wrong person you should be blaming.
Was your overall career this new when you made that bet on yourself? I want to talk about this for a second.
Mhm.
When you made this bet on yourself and became the IT guy who now works in media, was that part of the motivation? Like, when you made this bet on yourself, like, I'm gonna do this, and I'm going to, was it part of the sacrifice that you made for your son? It was like, like, was this part of your way of saying, I'm going to do things differently than what I experienced?
Well, how I raised him was like the epitome of I'm not going to be my father.
Mhm.
Um, so my parenting style evolved over time. I was very aware of what I was doing, what I wasn't doing. Um, and as I got older, I just tried to. My relationship with my son has been built on I talk to him. We communicate. How are you feeling? You tell me how you're feeling. I'll tell you, and I'll tell you how I'm feeling, and we just communicate.
Mhm.
I don't hit him, don't spank him, anything like that, um, because he's a lot like me, and he's honestly no my opinion. No kid should be hit. Um, it's a lot easier to hit a kid than talk to him, and not the. When I say talk, I mean you need to communicate. You can be pissed off at your kid. Kids do things that piss you off, right? But what I'm saying is you communicate. You teach them why they messed up, what they need to do next time, and then give them an adequate punishment if necessary, but also lift them up. So let them know that you still love them, and that next time you can do better. That kind of thing. So these were things that I consciously was doing because I did not want to be my father. Um, and as far as the transition, I wrote the book and dedicated the first book. Well, I actually dedicated both books now, but I dedicated the first book to my son because I wanted to show him that if there so to put context, so people who are not familiar with Black Victim, Black Victor, I started writing it in the summer of 2020, right? So it was after, everybody's locked down, George Floyd, all the narratives, everything is crazy. Up is down, down is up. So I started writing online at first to figure out, am I going crazy? And I discovered I'm not going crazy. Everybody else is. And then I had an idea for like about a year about leaving something for my son. And I thought, like, oh, book. I'll leave something for my son in a book. But I didn't
Mhm.
know what I wanted to write about. But after all that craziness, and I kept getting encouragement from people online who were saying, you need to write more. You need to write more. So I was like, you know what? Maybe this is the book. But I wrote the book to show my son, no matter what is going on, you should be able to express yourself, and even if it's unpopular, say it. And so people understand. I wrote like 90% of my book in my office at work. Only a handful of people knew I was writing it. Not even my mother knew that I was writing this book. No one knew. I didn't tell anybody. And Michelle would read. Every time I would write something, I would send it to Michelle. She would read it on her way to work. And I would do that every day for months. And I told myself, I don't know if I'm going to get fired. I don't know if my parents, not my parents, my family members are going to get pissed off and want to disassociate from me. I don't know if I'm going to lose friends, but it's still worth it for me to do it.
Well,
And quite the opposite happened. The owner of the company was like, "Give me 5 copies."
Wow.
And I got nothing but love. I lost a few progressive friends, which is fine.
Fuck them. Fuck them.
I lost a few progressive friends, but my family's been riding with me. My extended family, my cousins, they've been riding with me. Even if they disagree with me, sometimes I don't know if they know. I don't know if they know my actual positions on certain things. They just kind of assume, but that's fine. They still love me. They still come and support.
We'll fix that in the next hour. Go ahead, bro. I'm sorry.
No. But they came to my wedding. I go to see my extended family at Thanksgiving. My mom comes to support. My mom's not super political, which is a good thing, because she's inquisitive and she asks questions. But we talk about these things. I think my sister disagrees with me on some stuff, but she still loves me, and that's fine. But I wanted to show my son that sometimes you're going to be the only person saying the thing, and it's okay to be that person. And so, especially with these 2 books, I wanted to demonstrate that to my son. But when he read the first book, he told me that, like, he's very appreciative of me being his father, because especially in comparison to what I went through and not having a father there. And I think I didn't even think about this before writing that book, but I realized that afterwards that a lot of children don't truly know their parents.
Yeah.
Like, their parents don't open up that much. They just know surface level and maybe a layer below.
Yeah,
But
that's for sure.
Yeah. But and that's fine. But I do think that there is something about being truly transparent and opening up to your kids, and I'm opening up to my son by writing this down so he can always go back and read it. Because one day I'm not going to be here, and he can always reference, this is what my dad went through, this is what he wrote. I understand my father, and here are the lessons, because this book is filled with lessons and perspective and all these different things that he can always reference back to. So
yeah. We've got a note here that I want to just share with you. Friend of the show, Mr. Music Creator, great guy. He says resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other party to get sick. I came to realize many of my resentments came from unrealistic expectations. For me, a lot of my misplaced expectations became resentments thrown into the future. Yo, that's heavy. That's heavy. Yo, Music Creator, thank you so much for that message. There's another part that I want to share, and this is actually in the first chapter.
Mhm.
And this is the part that I think for me in terms of our relationship, right? This resonates with me because I didn't know most of this stuff, right? When we you know, like, because I mean, the way we met was we met through the magic of Twitter, okay? But this is I believe this is chapter 1. Yeah, this is chapter 1. You and by the way, chapter 1, you do a great job of asking people, of like drawing people's attention to the situation with Jordan Neely, and I'll get to that in a second. But this part here, where you say, quote, "I'm a child." However, the greatest. I'll read this part over here. If you create a home of instability, unnerving uncertainty, and deprivation of love, you cannot be surprised if your children mimic this environment when they grow up. However, the greatest danger of this cultural problem of family separation and childhood abandonment getting worse isn't the children who grow up to be the adults on the fringes of society. It's adults like me. I'm a child who grew up without my father active in my life, who chose himself over his children and abandoned me until the day he died. There is a myriad of children who come from this circumstance, who end up in jail, addicted, or dead. But none of that happened to me. I'm the child who grew up in a single parent household success story because aesthetically, I look fine. If I never told the world about my experience with decades of suffering from abandonment and rejection, no one would have guessed, and I am in that category personally. Children like me, and children like me who escape the fringes become the tales that irreverent parents use to validate their dysfunctional decisions. Adam turned out fine, so having a father ain't necessary. Focusing on my result to validate poor parental decision-making or family planning overlooks how close I was to ending up in one of those detrimental situations. By the grace of God, I made it, but my successes should never be a reason for parents to risk playing Russian roulette with their children's lives. Hear, hear, brother. Hear, hear. I took the words out of my mouth. So, I guess for anyone, I mean, this hits. That hit hard specifically because in the Black community, if we can use that terminology, community. Oh shit!
Wait, what's that? Community. What is it?
The Black community. He think he Eric Cartman right now. But now, like, yo, we could use some Eric Cartmans these days. You could have used some Eric Cartmans yesterday at these fucking protests. We gonna get into that. Oh yeah, but what, like, your situation hits hard because, you know, in the Black community, because 3 out of 4 families amongst Black people are single parent households, and most of that number are they're led by mothers. And I would have never known, like, what you had gone through, Lee. So this hits hard in this particular case. What would you say to men like you who might be in a very similar situation, where they're facing uncertainty, where they're facing this desperation, where they're facing this overpowering desperation? Like, what would you say to guys out here who are trying to better themselves and become better for their families?
Well, are you saying the children who are just like me, who are now adults? Is that what you're referring
Yes.
to?
Yes,
Okay.
that's exactly right.
I would say one, you're not alone. I think it's incredibly important to understand that you're not alone because often it feels like something is wrong with you. You're the only one experiencing this. No one can understand your pain or what you're going through, which is why you might keep it to yourself and you don't tell anybody, but it eats away at you. Um, so that'll be the first thing I would say is that you're not alone to go through this. I think the second thing I would say is um, it does get better if you work on yourself. You can't change your childhood. Like there's nothing you can do. But as an adult, you have control over how you see your circumstance, how you see the world, how you see your future. And that's something that you do have control over. You don't have control if your dad wasn't there or if both your parents neglected you or whatever. You have no control over that. But as an adult, you do have control. And you don't want to succumb to believing that life is happening to you rather than you are happening for your own life. You can do something about it. Um, I do encourage therapy. Uh, just make sure your therapist isn't woke and telling you that systemic oppression is the reason why
That's key.
you're feeling this way.
Oh,
It's
Jesus
that is
Christ.
very
Yeah,
important.
yeah.
You be sent down the wrong path doing that,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, so
I got
avoid
stories.
that. Avoid that. Go to a therapist, a talk therapist, one who is asking you the right questions so you can talk it out, but also giving you strategies um, to deal with. Maybe you have anger issues that are stemming from this. Maybe you have trust issues. Maybe you have rejection issues, right? And a good therapist won't keep you there forever. A good therapist will hear what you have to say. You can let that stuff out, but at the end of the day, they're supposed to give you a strategy dealing with whatever you're going through.
Yeah.
So,
lot of therapists out here get hooked on them copays.
Yeah,
indeed.
yeah. So
I
would
know
say
a few.
therapy. Yeah, there's more than a few. Um, I would say work on yourself, build yourself up, and if you need examples of someone who was able to overcome those obstacles, I'm one of them. There are many others. It is possible. So, and the most important thing is don't lose hope. Um, I talk about in the book the importance of hope, um, and hope keeps you tethered to life. Without hope, what's the point? So don't lose hope and just keep striving to move forward. But yeah, I think just speaking for myself, um, realizing that I wasn't alone in this circumstance did help me.
Yeah, and I would add to that too, just real quickly to the advice, which is great advice. I think another thing that people should remember, the way I look at it, is like, you already went through, especially with things like suicidal ideation or deciding you're just going to give up on life and just play video games or whatever, not try hard at all or whatever, and just kind of just coast or do destructive things to yourself or others. Instead of that, like, you've already suffered so much in your life. Everybody suffered, some more than others, but everybody suffered throughout their lives because life is difficult. There's always huge disappointments, rejections, pain, you name it, sicknesses, injuries, somebody dies, you name it, right? Maybe you're really poor. Maybe you have all different emotional issues. There's so many different things that can affect you, right? But I always like I think like I would tell people, if you're a teenager, adult, it's like, you already went this far. What was it all for? What was it all for to go through all that? You're just gonna like give up now? You're just gonna commit suicide or just drug yourself to death or be a criminal and go to prison forever? Or just you got to push through, man. Just like Churchill says, right? If you're going through hell, keep going. I think that's another thing to think about. It's like you already went through all this. Make it meaningful, for real. But anyways, I wanted to ask you a question, Adam, because I read your "I Was Devastated" article on New York Post, which is an excerpt of your book, right? The new book, The Children We Left Behind. It was called, "I was devastated when my father abandoned me, yet liberals make excuses for broken homes." Very interesting piece. And there was a quote I found that said from you, it says, "Growing prosperity and a greater emphasis on individualism in our country have led to a cultural decline in our willingness to make sacrifices. In this widespread aversion to living sacrificially, it is our children that suffer the most." So what I want to ask is, why do you think that we've had this like greater emphasis on individualism to a pathological level? And, also things like celebrating not having children, or kind of being like, being feminism or whoever, just being like, nah, that's stupid. Why would you have kids? Why would you get married? So dumb. Or even like, the openly Maoist Marxist BLM organization who used to have on their website, one of their goals was to abolish the nuclear family on their website. So why do you think that there has been this emphasis on individualism, anti-family, anti-marriage, anti-having kids, this like super like people never growing up, eternal adolescence? What do you think that is?
Materialism and prosperity mixed. We've become, and it's not a recent thing, I would say for quite some time, as the United States has become more economically prosperous, and sometimes we measured that prosperity based on the things that we can buy. For some people, it like expands this world of all the things that they can obtain if they just make enough money and have enough time to do it. And ultimately, materialism just leads to self. It's just all about you and what you want. And also, it puts everything into the external, into objects, into things. Right? If I just get that new car, if I get this new job, I can get the bigger house. Right? But these are just stuff. These are things. And so we've made materials almost like an idol in many ways. And well, you don't have to sacrifice for a car. You don't have to sacrifice for a house, right? These are just objects, right? You might do things, you might sacrifice your time, maybe you work overtime, but that's for you, not for somebody else, right? So you're obtaining. It's about constantly obtaining things to chase a feeling, to chase a high, to chase I've accomplished this thing. It's my accomplishment, right? But it's this constant obsession with getting the new thing, getting the material that will make them feel good. But chasing materials always leaves you empty. And I've learned that firsthand. In some cases, I was a car guy for many years and chasing and chasing and chasing, but I was also an unfulfilled person. So that never helped me, and I learned the hard way that this is empty. It's very empty. And a lot of the things that we tell people to do is empty. Reckless sex with random women and men, that's empty. There's not.
When did that start changing, though, you think? Like, I mean, because like we haven't always been that way as a country and as a culture. I mean, do you think it was like the 60s sexual revolution like coincides with that a little bit? Or because this is interesting, because like we used to, for I don't know, for hundreds of years, thousands of years, it seems like, I'm sure there was maybe dips, and maybe when the fall of Rome happened, maybe people were different, but where we used to really like hold the family sacred, especially in like religious context, like the Holy Family, right? Which I feel, and I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious, but I do feel that now, having my own family, having my own daughter, my wife, and you feel like a sacred bond with that like like Trinity, basically. Where like it's just like an extension of real love, real caring, beautiful love, right? And it's like I don't know, I feel like that's become, definitely in the last several decades, become less and less and less sacred, more and more like, why bother with that? Women, you shouldn't be mothers. Like, just you got to try to be CEOs and entrepreneurs and be everybody's girl boss, and being a stay-at-home mother, or just being a mother in general, and then a lot of women obviously regret that later on. They're mid to late 30s. Guys are told, you know, you're gonna get divorced. I mean, and there's some good reasons too. It's like you might get divorced. They might get divorced and take half your money, take your house, whatever. Your wife is wants to keep the kids away from you, and it could be like hell, right? If there's something happens in a divorce. So there's reasons, I get it, but it's also like men, I feel like, have been taught to like just have an eternal adolescence themselves, be play video games all the time, escape,
Yeah.
just be promiscuous. That's the cool way to go. Of course, there's like the whole manosphere kind of thing going on where like the Tates of the world will kind of promote that as well. And then I mean, he also promotes having kids. He's all over the place. But you know what I'm saying? So I think there's just been an attitude. I think it's changing recently a little bit. Like there's kind of been a kind of coming back to conservatism, coming back to spirituality, religion a little bit in some sectors of online youth and that sort of thing. But it does seem like over the last couple of decades, that's been a thing where, you know, it's just been people are like, no, just like continue to like party and travel and go out and have happy hours and brunches and stuff until you're fucking 100.
Party and bullshit, baby.
Yeah, and be a mom, dad, and a cat dad. You know,
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean.
I'm wondering. I'm wondering. What do you think? What Isaiah thinks? Like, what do you think that might be stemming from? Because I think there's that too going on.
Well, I try not to be one of those people who talks about history in a sense, because I wasn't around and I'm not a historian or anything like that. Obviously, like I can only talk about
400
I wasn't around.
No, just
like I wasn't around in the 60s.
good.
I can understand when people make that argument. And maybe if someone who's much older than myself says like I saw the shift, you know, all this stuff.
Right.
You know, and maybe there's some validity there, but I can only speak from since I've been alive. And since I've been alive, I've seen materials become more and more of an idol. Things becoming more and more of an idol. So now, if I can just add a little bit more, because you kind of brought it up. If I'm to be like 100, we have stepped away from godly principles. We've replaced God with things.
Yeah.
And there is nothing in a car, there is nothing in a house, there's nothing in that discount object you get from Walmart. There is nothing. These are fleeting feelings. By stepping away from God, we've also stepped away from conduct. We've stepped away from things that are actually beneficial. We are beings that are told to love, but we don't know what love means or what it looks like. It's skewed. Love is sex. Love is essentially lust. That's the remix version. But much of what I was saying before, love is sacrifice, right? So when I think of God and Jesus Christ demonstrated the ultimate love. He sacrificed his life for mankind, right? That is love. That's the essence of love. And that's the greatest sacrifice that someone can make. And, you know, I've said this before, parents talk about, I'd step in front of a bus for my child. I'd do anything for my child, yet they would not stay with their children's father or the children's mother for the children.
Yeah.
So where is that sacrifice? Where is that need for sacrifice? And these are words, right? This is lip service. Where is the action?
That's true.
I have never. I have actually grown to despise something about this current moment in our country's history. And it is this selfishness, this vulgar, misguided selfishness that doesn't really do anything to advance it does nothing to advance civilization. When I was and even in the and really it doesn't even what I'm about to talk about in terms of the selfishness, it doesn't even help in terms of dating. I can't tell you how many women I dated before Kareen who are obsessed with travel, obsessed with it. I'm not saying that I would never once say there's anything wrong with going with traveling the world. You've done it, Nick. So we've all done it. Like, we've all been to multiple countries throughout our lives.
It's great.
But the issue that I have is that a lot of the women that I used to date, okay, or that I've dated, would be like, well, you need to have like 3 or 4, like you need to have a minimum of 5 stamps in your passport or some shit like that, right? My my ex-girlfriend, my DEI ex was one who loved to travel, loved to, just, and needless to say, it was that you find out later on that there's narcissism, like that just extreme selfishness that you keep seeing. It's like we live in the most selfish time in our nation's history, and I guess the question I have for you is, how do we get past that? Like, there are some people who don't believe in God, and clearly, some people who for whom Christian principles aren't necessarily going to be their cup of tea.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you think could be some things that people could get around, could actually coalesce around, that can maybe advance, and just get over this spell of narcissism and selfishness, that self-indulgence that we're currently in?
Well, one, I think we have to be honest with each other. I think we need a honest culture. As much as we have multimedia and we can stream and we can have podcasts and stuff like that, I don't see a lot of honesty. I see a lot of people like to talk about the truth. I don't see a lot of honesty, though. I see a lot of self-indulgence, performance. I see a lot of that.
Virtue signaling.
I see a lot of people pretending, right? And so I'll tell you this, as someone who spent much of my life, 1, insecure, 2, unhappy, I can smell insecure and unhappy people. Like, it just sticks out to me.
They smell like shit.
I cannot tell you. Yes, it smells terrible.
Mixed with patchouli.
Yeah.
But I can't tell you how many times.
Shit and patchouli. There you go.
I can't tell you how many times I've watched public figures, influencers. I've watched these people, and I'm like, these are miserable human beings who are projecting to the world how happy they are, and they are not happy. And sometimes it comes to light because something happens in their life, and you get to see how miserable this person is, or how inauthentic this person is, right? But I can sense it. I can sense when someone is insecure. Like, the easiest way to tell someone's insecure is that they tell you things instead of showing you things.
Bingo.
That's the number one way to tell. If they have to tell you how great they are, they don't believe they're great. If they have to tell you how smart they are, they don't think they're that smart.
Or what some try to do is they'll do this here. They'll be like, they'll say something like, "You're not the stand-up guy you think you are," while packing up the dog and going out to the West Coast. You know what I'm saying? Like, they'll say shit like that. But go ahead. Sorry.
Man.
If I'm to add a racial thing, there are a lot of how should I put this? There are a lot of Black people who are very, very much so all about their skin color, but it screams insecurity.
I mean, narcissism.
Not just narcissism. It screams insecurity because they. All right, I'll give you an example. When you see
Come on with
And
it.
a black person who's lived in America their entire life, and then all of a sudden you see them wearing dashikis and the Egyptian necklaces and shit.
You see
And I'm
Nancy
just
Pelosi
like,
wearing it?
Oh, Roland Martin.
right, right,
No,
exactly,
go ahead. I'm just
right.
That
This
fat
is this is
motherfucker. Oh,
this
sorry.
is
Sorry.
he's
it's all
too
good.
much. Yeah.
This is all performative, right?
Yeah.
This is a sense of racial insecurity that I'm not saying necessarily Roland Martin.
Him and them
He's a
feather
different story.
dust. Him and them feather duster pocket squares.
Who's that young
Right.
Malcolm X representative from
Oh,
Tennessee?
God.
Pearson?
Oh.
Pearson? Is that his name?
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
He's one of those guys, I think, right?
Yeah, it's just that's what I'm saying. Like when someone is insecure,
Mm.
they act a particular way. They
Yeah.
don't when you have to say, I'll give you an example, bring back to race. When someone has to say black is beautiful, why
Yeah.
did you have to say that?
Mm.
It's because you're trying to convince yourself that black is beautiful
Yeah, that's a
because
good
you
point.
feel
I agree.
insecure about it. If black is beautiful, it just is. You don't
Yeah.
have to say it,
Yeah.
right?
Like
No
I
one
agree.
else.
like them t-shirts.
that.
Like them
And I think it
t-shirts
is like
you-
to be clear, and I'm sure you agree. It is. I think black is beautiful, but it's like you probably don't have to say that, right? And it's
You don't
like
have to.
it's sad that some people feel like they need to say that. I think
Right.
it
And then
like
they'll
them
put it on
t-shirts.
everybody
it reflects and it exactly reflects an insecurity. It does.
or
It
like
does,
the
100%.
t-shirts we used to see years ago where that said black girls are magic.
Right.
Yeah.
You remember
Yeah.
them?
Right.
Yeah.
Like this is
Oh, yeah,
this is all
yes, I remember a quote actually.
this is all pick me up shit,
Yeah.
right? Who needs a pick me up? Insecure people need a pick me up,
Yeah.
right? You don't need to pick me up, but that is like an entire culture of pick me up nature where you have to they have to hear it 24/7. Accept me. Oh, tell me how wonderful I am because I don't think I'm wonderful.
Tell me
And
I'm
if you
pretty.
say,
Tell me I'm pretty.
and if you say, hey, you don't have to say black is beautiful. It just is. Well, they don't think it is. Why does it matter what they
Why does
think?
it matter? Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Only an insecure person would say something like that.
Yes.
Who cares? Right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
that's just like a side note, but I do see a lot of insecurity that really sticks out in my head. And so to bring it back to actually the example that Isaiah made about these women who want to travel or who are trying to shame you for not traveling. What they're doing is using travel as a status thing, right?
Mhm.
Because if you can travel internationally, you make enough money to do this. But two, why the very thing that you said, how many stamps are in your passport?
Mhm.
That's something very specific to me because that's not about you experiencing traveling.
Yes.
That's about showing other people
Keeping score.
how
Yeah.
valuable or how wealthy
Yeah.
you are, or whatever it might be. But that's an insecurity. You have to
It is.
prove to other people how much money you have.
Mm.
You know, that's what I'm saying. There's a level of insecurity that is involved. It's not just narcissism.
Yeah, no, you
Right?
see that a lot
And
with
by the way-
Instagram people, like where they show
Yeah.
everybody's got to do the same pose in front of the same monuments and the same tourist places, and they got to show, do like the thirst trap pictures. You see that a lot with the girls, and I'm sure guys have their own thing where they rent the freaking rent the Lambo and they're sitting in the Lambo, and it's just like it's 100% an insecurity thing. That they're trying to signal, hey guys, somebody pay attention to me. Somebody think I'm important.
Showing their tonsils in front of a Nissan
Yeah.
Altima. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I've
by
been,
the way-
I'm sure we've all been insecure and we've all been a little bit miserable at times. We've all been stuck. We've all been, not at our best moments and thinking about, geez, man, I don't know, maybe I'm not really good for much, am I? And, so not to hate on people and act like we're the three fucking people on earth that never did this. We've all been there to one degree or another. But go ahead, Adam.
No, I was going to say that insecurity, actually, the narcissism that Isaiah was bringing up before, narcissism stems from
Deep
usually
insecurity.
some sort of insecurity as far as when they were children, right? So things were unpredictable for them. They weren't being advocated for, and they take an extreme selfish position because they're not looking out for me, so I have to look out for
Like
myself.
a defense mechanism.
Right.
An adaptation. Yeah.
Right. So someone who is actually I know we throw narcissism around, but someone who's an actual narcissist, that's the environment that they're coming from. They're coming from an environment where they have to take the extreme position that no one else will look out for them, and they have to look out for themselves, and so much so to the detriment of anyone else. So they always have to put themselves first, because when they didn't, when they were children, they were left behind. They were forgotten about.
Yep. Yeah, it's crazy. I want to switch gears for a second because this has been a great conversation. I want to know I want to get your opinion on some stuff that happened within current events.
Mm-hmm.
If I can switch gears for a second, we talk a lot about histrionic behavior, right? A lot of histrionic, a lot of insecure, foolishness. Like one of like my favorite, like before we one of my favorite things. If you mentioned the whole race narcissism thing, well, we talked about it in brief. I love like this is the kind of shit. This is that type of insecure shit that that disgusted me a few weeks ago. I think you remember this.
We're in the middle of a hostile government takeover. I want to talk about it, but I've been late for work. And if you're saying, wait a minute, do we have to stop this? We had one, but she didn't want that lady in office. Hostile government.
Off is a direction you can fuck.
Thank you, Dwayne.
Yeah. That type of ridiculousness is that insecurity. Like, and I joke around a bit, but when you listen to the words of that song, and it's like we're in the middle of a hostile government takeover. I want to talk about it, but I'd be late for work. And like,
it doesn't make sense.
That middle part is like, this doesn't make sense, and we have to stop this. And then this last part, well, you could have, but you didn't want that lady in office.
Yeah. I mean, that's like true. Yeah, we didn't want her in office.
Do you understand?
Majority of people didn't want her in office.
Like,
I mean,
we didn't vote.
It's a choice between two people, man.
Right.
Partly the big part of that is the Democrats. So I'll put somebody else that's a little bit more a little more trustworthy with that responsibility.
But there's more.
Somebody could talk on their feet.
There's more of this ridiculousness
that
was on display over the weekend. Because when, as we talked about earlier, a lot of these people don't have God in their lives. A lot of people don't have God. A lot of people have become a God unto themselves, the Bible says. There was a lot of this. Paid protest. That was in Manhattan yesterday. There were these gigantic protests yesterday throughout pretty much all the major cities. DC had summoned like a lot of bad ones. But as you can see, there was a lot of stuff, like people didn't even really understand why they were it's like they knew they were there to hate, but they couldn't really, I guess, articulate their hatred well. I want to get your thoughts on one interaction in particular, Adam, and I'll get your thoughts on the other side of this.
What are we protesting today?
Donald Trump.
Well, what's Donald Trump doing that we're protesting?
Well, he is fucking up the American democracy right now and trying to kind of repeal a bunch of shit in the Constitution, like, rights and liberties. So,
is there anything in specific that he's...
I don't have all the information, but I do know.
What are you against?
Personally, I'm against tyrants. I'm against tyranny. That's what I'm against.
What is that?
Somebody
Rights
who's
and
coming in
stuff.
and trying to take over the country and get rid of the rules and regulations that have existed for centuries to keep us citizens safe.
And who do you think is doing that?
Currently, Donald Trump and Elon Musk and all of his cabinet members.
Why Elon Musk though?
The Department of Government Efficiency, he was put in charge of a department that doesn't even exist before this, and he's not even an American.
Who's not an American?
Elon Musk.
Okay.
He's from South Africa. I don't know if you knew that.
How do you feel about Donald Trump?
I think that he deserves to die.
He should what?
Die.
Okay. All right.
That's how I feel.
Let's-
So who do you want to run America?
The people, preferably.
You want the people to run America?
Like a democracy should be. Yes.
Do you feel like the people voted for him?
I think the people were fooled.
Fooled by who?
Him.
How?
I don't... Dude.
False consciousness.
It's a what?
It's a false consciousness.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, so
Here comes
Can I see your
communism.
sign?
Can you see it?
No, I'm sitting right
To
here.
the camera.
No, to the camera, brother.
I'm talking to you.
But I'm interviewing. I got a mic.
I don't care about that.
You decided to
I'm
talk.
here as an individual.
Individual.
I'm here as an individual.
Okay.
I'm talking to you as an individual.
Okay, well, I want to see the sign.
Read
If you have a sign.
Read the sign.
Okay, all right. What's the sign say? What does the sign say? Hold on, brother. What does the
You go out of your way.
all people are children
How about that?
of the earth.
Yeah, all people are children of the earth. Can you disagree with that? Can you disagree with
No, I
that?
can't disagree.
What do you got to say about that?
Can't disagree.
Me neither.
I love that, brother. Yeah. All people are people of the earth. I love that, man.
Is that Mike
Okay.
Jones? It sounds just like
Jesus Christ! Oh
Uh,
my God!
That's
Yeah,
rough.
First off, I
Go
didn't
ahead,
know he
Adam.
was trying to repeal rights.
Yeah,
Can't
rights,
relax.
just rights, getting rid of rights.
Donald
gonna
Trump
repeal-
just repeal rights or some junk? Like
Jesus.
fucking Valley Girl sounding ass. Like what the hell?
Apparently, those were males too, I think, guys. So
Yes,
That
anybody wonder? Everybody just listening to this.
technically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and also he's wishing death on the president of the United States. So there
Yeah.
you go. It's this
Unhinged.
the unhinged behavior that has been on display this weekend has just been ridiculous. Like I don't think I've ever seen it this bad. And if I can just get your like what is this? Like
Well-
I've never seen this level of unhinged behavior from so many people.
Well, actually, I thought you were going to show a different example because I've noticed something completely different about
What's that?
these protests. I've noticed, and it's actually not just this protest. It's also been the king of Elon. I'm sorry, not you. The king of Tesla cars.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed, but like half of those Tesla cam videos are boomers.
Oh, I've noticed that.
And when
I've
I look
noticed
at
that.
all the footage, whether it be New York, I've seen some footage from DC, Indiana, especially like middle America stuff. Even out here in New Jersey, they have these little mini protests. Ever since Elon got involved and started Doge, when I would see like these little mini protests, always the same, always boomers. It is always liberal boomers. And so I'm thinking to myself, what is causing for so many liberal boomers to come out and hold signs they barely understand and feel like so all right, to kind of answer my own question, what I believe is I believe that liberal boomers are being radicalized.
By CNN and MSNBC, the newspapers.
Remember years ago, long time ago,
They're the only ones that watch it.
when Fox News was starting to come up, and they would do all these think pieces about how Fox News is radicalizing your uncle to become this Fox News conservative viewer, right?
The white supremacist or whatever. Yeah. Fascist.
Yeah.
And now they're doing it.
Yep. Yeah.
now I have an example of this. A someone who was there at these protests caught exactly. You are not the only one who noticed this. Take a look at this shit. Have a load of this. Let me just hang on one second. Here we go. The shuffling down Fifth Avenue.
Yeah, look at that. A lot of boomers. If not all boomers, Jesus. Boomers and like trans people. That's all I see. Like really.
Like
Trans
it's
boomers.
unbelievable.
Boomers and some trans people and some like unhinged cat ladies.
It's
Future cat
unbelievable.
ladies.
The trans boomers.
Yeah, the trooners.
Yeah, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
No, I think
So-
you're absolutely right, Adam. I think it's so easy to get radicalized on there to think we are really literally in the throes of a fascist takeover. We might be in a couple of years looking at something that's resembling Mussolini or something, or Hitler. And they're the only people really watching CNN and MSNBC on a regular basis. And I know some people in that age group and also people watching Fox News all the time. But Fox News isn't so. It's not so emotionally unhinged. Like in Fox News, I watch all those channels too still sometimes, and like just to see what they're saying, I'm kind of interested. Actually, I watch quite a bit of CNN, a little bit of MSNBC, because like Fox News, I kind of already know what they're going to say because I'm a little bit in the conservative bubble. But yeah, I see like Fox News has a different vibe of like kind of joking around quite a bit. Like they have the five, they had like a little sarcastic remarks. They're kind of having a good time, and I think that the people are having a good time too watching it. They're like, haha, look at these crazy liberals. Oh my goodness, good thing we got Trump back in there, and they're fairly happy, right? Even though they're still concerned about certain things like illegal immigration and all that, the gender stuff. But CNN and MSNBC is like a constant like, oh my God, like what's he doing today? What's Trump doing today? Oh no, he's trying to destroy the Constitution. He's gonna do this with the tariffs. He's against our allies. He's a Russian asset. You name it. And like, yeah, that'll radicalize, especially if you're an older person, like a boomer or whatever. You don't have much else going on. You're retired and you're watching that all day long. You're gonna be like, Jesus Christ, why is more people not doing this? This is I have to do it. I have to get involved. So that's 100% right. And I think. I don't know how long those channels are going to last. Maybe as long as the boomers last. But right now they are just 100% just radicalizing these people.
And I don't know if you know this, and I might be off a year or two, but I believe the average age of a CNN viewer is like 66.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And so like
some stupid shit.
Yeah.
Now I'm actually just like a little bit behind the scenes. I'm probably going to write something about this. Not probably. I am going to write something about this tomorrow. We'll see where it lands. But what I've surmised is that the boomers grew up in an era where the TV news was trustworthy, and that whatever came in the newspaper was trustworthy, right? And so let's say that's true. Let's say it was mostly non-partial. Let's just say, right? Well, it is not today.
Right.
It is for sure not today.
Yep.
And they're running off of this, and that is their only source of information. So whatever comes up on CNN, the most trusted news source, whatever comes up on CNN, they believe.
That's when you cue the laugh track. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Right. And so even if they turn I'll just go to the New York Times. What do they say? New York Times readership is like 95% Democrat. And I wish I was making that up.
As are the editors and the writers and the journalists. Yes. And just like NPR, was it 87 of was it 87?
It was higher than that.
87 editors in the DC area for NPR are registered Democrats, and there's zero registered Republicans apparently in that, and at least in the DC area. It's probably like that for most of the country for NPR.
Yeah.
Completely biased.
And what Radio Streamer is saying here, I do feel bad for them because they still think that the CNN of today is the CNN of 30, 40 years ago.
40 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, it is not. CNN is not the same.
Yeah,
it is not the same whatsoever. And while everyone else has kind of figured that out or has gotten tired of it, They're literally keeping these networks afloat. Them and big pharma ads are keeping
Yep.
CNN afloat and barely keeping it afloat.
Every
So
show brought to you by Pfizer.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're being radicalized and they don't even realize it. They think so. Here's the thing. If you were to go and try to talk to these people, and let's say not the craziest of the people there, you would go to the average boomer who's walking out there with a sign. They think that Donald Trump is about to take away their Social Security. That's what they think.
Sure do.
Yeah.
And I've heard this personally, not going to name names, but I've heard this personally, where they think that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are just plotting to take away Social Security. And I'm like, where did they hear that from? I mean, granted, I don't hear everything in politics, but I'm pretty sure I would hear that. I would know about that if that was the next step to take away something from Social Security or take away Social Security. They think it's going to be gone. And meanwhile, I'm trying to tell them we broke.
Right.
America is broke. When that dude from Doge was talking about the Treasury, and they said that in our bank account, in America's bank account, which is hilarious that we have one bank account that everyone takes money from, which boggles the mind. In our bank account, I think he said we either had like 600 billion. I think it was something like that. I could be off a billion or 100 billion or something like that. It was either 500 billion or 600 billion. That's it. Now, granted, that's not a little.
That's nothing for the United States of America. That's absolutely nothing.
We owe $2 trillion.
Yeah.
America is broke. Any other circumstance, if someone came to you and they say, I make $50,000 a year and I got $500,000 in debt, you'd be like, dude, you broke.
Oh yeah.
You broke. You ain't got no money. Like, you can't pay off your debt. So
exactly.
This is the circumstance that we're in. So when someone comes to them and says someone is trying to, and here's the thing, everyone makes this about Elon. Elon has no authority. If you're going to blame someone, blame Trump, right? Elon makes a recommendation, or his Doge team makes recommendations. They send it to the heads, and the heads accept it or don't accept it. But it seems like the heads are all in lockstep. We need to make changes. And Trump has the authority. So if anything, be mad at Trump. But Elon has no power. So when that person's like, Elon's not an American, which, by the way, Mr. All immigrants are wonderful and everybody deserves to get here, except for that immigrant.
Yeah. That immigrant who created like several really, really, really important products like Starlink and Neuralink they're working on, and electric cars, making them mass available
to me.
Yeah,
like we're talking about a guy.
Hopefully somebody kills him. You know,
we're talking about a guy who literally was their Tony Stark.
Yeah.
He was the left's Tony Stark not even 10 years ago. To see this turn to where now you have these people in a decade's time go from worshiping this dude to now openly wishing for his unaliving.
Yeah, deportation, killing,
unaliving.
Put him in prison.
It's like it's like we're watching. This is why I called this time period the Great American Maoist Crash Out. Because Maoists were the ones back in the 1950s and 60s when Mao Zedong was head of the communist cult, the Great Leap Forward, and all that. This is that same murderous energy. That's this genocidal energy, actually. The stuff that I've seen out there, like, because my thing is this. Let's say you get your way. Let's say Trump is taken out. Okay. So then you got JD Vance to deal with. And last time I checked, JD Vance, from everything I've been hearing, from everything I've listened to, everything I've read from him, he is Trump times about 5. With the advantage of youth.
Yeah, and he's he's a
He's
much better
our age.
He's a much better communicator than Trump is too at this point.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, Trump could ramble a little bit. He kind of speaks horseshit sometimes. He exaggerates clearly a lot of times, and whatever, it's fine. But JD Vance is sharp. He's very sharp. He's very confident talking to people. From their point of view, he should be extremely dangerous, and he is, I think. And I think a lot of them hate him almost as much as Trump, if not more. Some of them. So it's like, yeah, to your point, if they, a lot of them dream of Trump getting assassinated, then they're going to put JD Vance in because that's how it works with the Constitution. I'm not sure if they fucking understand that. But once that happens, it's like, what do you do? I guess we got to kill him too, right? What's the next? That's going to be the attitude again.
Right.
So, well, we got to get rid of this guy. He's even more dangerous. That's going to be the headlines. He's even more dangerous than Trump. He's sharper and smarter and all this stuff. And then what happens if he gets the next guy? He's more dangerous. We got to get rid of him. It really is like that is what would happen, right? So it doesn't make any sense. It's very unhinged. Like you said, it's very murderous. It's a murderous, hysterical, scared, I guess. Like it's like a scared, fear-based like murderousness from some of the people on the left. It's very hysterical and unhinged.
I've never seen anything like this. I'm utterly convinced that like the mass psychosis that was started by COVID. I mean, let's be honest. We are in the last throes, the last desperate throes of a mass psychosis. We were lied into this pandemic with, we'll just say 5 years ago, we were lied into the pandemic. We were lied into mass compliance, whether it was masks, whether it was social distancing, whether it was everything else. 5 years later, there are people to this day who ride the subway still wearing masks.
Yeah.
I'm talking KN95s. And the worst thing about it is nowadays with these masks, you can tell like who's who's doing it for, you could say, health reasons, who's doing it because they are like legit mentally ill, and who might be doing it who's a true blue, like a true believer, like a true fucking communist. If they're wearing KN95s or the ones that look like duck lips, where they face like this, yeah, you can. If they're wearing
it in the car by themselves.
Yeah. They might just be. Yeah, if they're wearing. Oh my God, that's the worst.
Those people.
That's the worst.
Those people. Hopeless, man.
I don't know, man. God, this has been a great show so far. I just want to. Might be a little bit late with the so first off, everyone, we've got like 2,700 people almost 2,800 people who are watching the show right now. Thank you so much again for coming by. Again, you can support the show at buymeacoffee.com/apostate radio. We need socks, we need underwear, we need all sorts of stuff, especially Nose over there.
They call me Shoeless Joe Jackson, man.
Shoeless Joe Jackson.
I got my toes come out of my shoes.
Oh God. Let me see here. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else hold on. Let's just take a quick peek again, because we got a lot of stuff. Actually, there was one last thing I wanted to talk to you about, and that was this last piece in your book, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. Let me just make sure I find it here. Okay. You were talking just this last bit of this conversation where you said, it was shortly after my son's birth, and I wanted to see if there was even the slightest possibility that he, your father, could be a better grandfather than a father. However, as it was a short phone call, I never had the chance to tell him about my son as I would have liked. It was apparent that the son he hadn't talked to in years was bothering him. This conversation took place when I was 21 years old, As of the time of writing this book, I am 40 and still open to the possibility of an apology from a man who is no longer alive to speak. The older I get, the more I understand how complicated life is and how empathetic I am toward people who have made several mistakes, just like I have. It would be unreasonable for me to pretend that I haven't done things in the past that were harmful to others, or that I shouldn't have handled them differently. Throughout my life, I have hurt several people to varying degrees. Actually, no, I'm going to stop right there. It would be unreasonable for me to pretend that I haven't done things in the past that were harmful to others, or that I shouldn't have handled them differently. What was that moment like for you? When you had that, like, what were the thoughts going through your mind at that point?
That you mean during that phone call?
Yes.
Not really a surprise, but still disappointing. And I think that like I said, I was always open to having a relationship with them, but I wasn't going to do it. I made the phone call. He didn't seem like he was interested. And so shortly after that, I was like, why am I bothering? Like, it's not my responsibility to establish a relationship with him. And so I'm not going to call him anymore. I'm not going to reach out to him anymore. Now, if he reaches out to me and wants to have something, then I'll answer. I never had that feeling like I was going to cut him off. But I did have a conversation with an ex-coworker of mine. I think it was like 4 years later or something like that. A few years later. And I told him about this, and he said, if your father passes away, are you going to regret not doing something? And I told him no, because I tried.
You did.
And he wasn't interested, or at least audibly sounded like he wasn't excited to talk to me, wasn't interested, like I was interrupting him. So
did he end the conversation with you, like, abruptly or anything, Adam? Or be like, well, I gotta go. It's not a great time. Or
no, I ended the conversation because you get that vibe. Like, I called him while he was because the only number I had was at his business. He owned a dry cleaner. So I called, I guess, a guy that works with him, answered the phone, and then I told him who I was, and he put my father on the phone. But he just didn't seem interested in hearing from me whatsoever. So to go back to that conversation, I told him no, I wouldn't regret anything because I tried. So I never closed the door on a relationship with my father. But he never reached out to me. And as I mentioned earlier, I didn't find out he died until a few months after he passed away. And even then, because I was in my car when my mom told me that, and I was like, do I want to cry? And I didn't cry. I've never cried for my father's death because I didn't know him.
Right.
I didn't. And on top of that, I kind of just accepted it. Like he died a long time ago to me because he wasn't there. So him being gone is not some sudden tragic thing because he was gone most of my life.
Right.
No, and I had no contact with him for, at that point, I think like a decade, at least a decade.
Shit. That's insane.
So do you have another family? Do you have like other? You said you have a sister. So your sister's like your full-blooded sister, same parents,
yeah,
mother and father.
Same father. Yeah.
Okay. So did he have any other kids after you guys or anything?
So this is what I was saying earlier. Writing this book allowed for me to have conversations with my mom, and so he was always married. I assumed that he had kids with his wife.
Yeah.
He did not. He had a child with somebody else somewhere that
Wow.
I have no idea about, and he had zero relationship with. So I have a half sister out there somewhere, no idea, and I will never find that out.
Does he have? I wonder if he has like a personality disorder, man. Like, I mean, like, how do you not? Especially if you have no other kids, like, maybe I'd understand a little better if like he had a new family, new kids. This is like the woman he loves. This is what his official family or whatever. So he's just like, hey, man, I really don't. I mean, I really don't want to have a relationship with you. This is like, I got it. My wife's gonna get mad. Whatever. Maybe something like that. Even though I still think it's fucked up and stupid. Doesn't need to be that way. But it may make more sense. But it's like, if that's not the case, and you're like his only two kids, and then there's that other kid that you said he had no connection with at all. It's like, why are you so distant from your own children, your only children? It's very strange.
I don't know.
Like, it's not your fault at all. I mean, it's something going on with him. It's like, it's very unusual. At least even like a cursory, like, hey, we'll hang out a couple times a year. I love you, buddy. You're my boy. We'll see you next time. See you for Christmas, maybe something like that. That's not a lot, but it probably would have made a big difference to you. Oh, you're having an issue, give me a call, bud. Just stuff like that. Congratulations on graduation. Like, that's not really asking much at all. Like, you couldn't do that. It's like, it's something. I feel like something's going on in his, like, maybe some kind of personality disorder or something, like sociopathic, or I don't know.
I don't know. I mean,
speculation at this point.
Speculation, but it's very unusual.
Yeah.
Even for a selfish person,
Yeah.
I would say this: if that was the case, because obviously, like, at a certain point, we didn't live near my father. Like, we had moved, right? Part of the reason why was my mother wasn't getting enough support. So we had moved. So I understand, even as a kid, my father can't see me every day because we live in a different state.
Yeah.
Understandable. But I'm not getting calls.
Yeah.
I'm not getting shown love outside of my father asking me arbitrarily, like, how's school? And I give him the answer of fine. That was the extent of our dialogue. Like, so everything about his interactions with me were uncomfortable and sounded forced.
Yeah.
So, for my father to be
you
like,
think was he autistic maybe, or like or he had a really terrible relationship with his parents or his dad, and he had no idea how to do it? Like,
I don't know my father's story.
Because it's just the bare minimum he could have done, and it would have been, I could see myself, even if I was like really selfish and busy with a lot of stuff, I'd be like, I can always find an hour to call my son, catch up on things, like, hey man, we'll keep on working at it. Glad you're doing well at sports, blah, blah, blah. And just show a little bit of love, a little bit of attention. Like, how hard is that?
Even just a little bit would have been enough hope to be like, maybe he does care, but he's just struggling, or he's fallen short, or something like that.
So very unusual. Yeah.
But I didn't get any of that. And like you said, I don't know. My father's an immigrant to America. He was from Trinidad. I don't know my father's immigrant story.
Yeah. Who knows?
I don't know why he came. I don't know anything.
Yeah.
So I want to bring a special guest up, who actually, who is a former Democrat herself, a fellow apostate, if you will. She had several. She has a few questions for you as well, Adam. I had the pleasure of interviewing with this with this young lady about a month ago down in Washington, D.C. When I went down there for a weekend. She is an up and coming YouTuber that talks to a lot of people about their stories coming away from the Democrats. I want to introduce you all to a fine young lady, Miss Audrey McNeil. How are you, dear? Welcome in.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Hi, Audrey.
Yeah, good. Welcome
to Apostate Radio.
Glad to be here.
Yeah.
You are official. Now, you are a friend of our regular of the Queen Apostate. We actually we were still waiting for. But Miss Evan Barker, but you have a special story. How did you become an apostate? What turned you so just for the benefit of our audience, what made you an apostate from the Democrats?
So for me, a wise man once told me that the only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision. And as a young person getting involved in politics, I got involved because I had a vision for what I wanted to see in my country. I also understood American history, so I wasn't afraid to get into politics as a young person. A lot of our founding fathers were young. They were under 40. A lot of them qualified to be founding teenagers, which is sort of crazy. But I love telling young people, we're not up next to run this country. We are up now to run this country. If you think about the older generations who are in Washington, who's been there for 30 and 50 years or 20 and 30 years, they have basically given us some of the largest debt that this country has ever seen. And basically what they've done is that they've taken us all out to dinner and ordered everything on the menu. And then they want to stick the youngest generation with the bill at the end of the night, which is crazy. And so I think that paradoxically, younger generations of people, as they get involved in politics, I think surprisingly, they would be actually very fiscally conservative. I think that the youngest generation has the most stake in the economic future of the country, which is why I'm really glad that JD Vance is involved. And I'm really glad to see younger people really get involved in politics. But back to the DNC, some people might ask, why were you a Democrat in the first place? And the answer to that is I came from a long line of Democrats. I was born into the party. Grandparents were Democrats. Parents were Democrats, and so I was a Democrat. And I had what I call a generational view of the party, this idea that we are married to the idea that the party is what it was under JFK, 60 years ago. And the party of JFK, they're very interesting. They wanted to go after the deep state. They wanted to go after permanent Washington. They embraced, innovation. They wanted to go to the moon. They embraced the space race. The idea that there's nothing to fear but fear itself. The idea that we do these things not because they're easy, but because they're hard. They were the party of free speech. They were the party of civil liberties, peace and prosperity all across the world. And I think that idea of the Democratic Party was really inspiring. And the reason why a lot of people are willing to stick to the label of the Democratic Party, even though its values are not the same as they were before. So I used to live in New York, one of the most liberal schools, or went to one of the most liberal schools in the state. And I think what I found is that the Democratic Party did not practice what they preached, essentially. They claim that they're the party of liberation, when really New York and California, they're the number one and number two state for the most restrictions on the books. So California has over 400,000 restrictions, laws that you didn't know that you needed. New York has over 300,000 restrictions, 300,000 laws and regulations that you didn't know that you needed. And so I kind of realized that the party of the Democrats of 2024 is more so married to red tape and regulation. They're anti-free enterprise. They are married to the war industrial complex. They have totally abandoned the working class. And so on those issues, I don't think my values have changed. And I think that the party has changed. And in 2024, I think it became obvious the values and the priorities of the Democratic Party and how it was vastly different than what it was, under JFK. And I think that I found that the Republican Party reflected more of my values: free enterprise, individualism, not removing even family values, not removing, I guess, like certain aspects of religion, the idea of, us saying one nation under God. I don't have a problem with that. I think that we should keep that. So just kind of recommitting to my values and realizing that the parties have changed, I think was really the thing that moved me towards the Democrats. The Republicans, and away from the Democrats. So that's really my story of how I got to where I am today. I don't regret my vote for Trump. I don't regret my endorsement of Trump. And I'm very happy with where I stand.
Okay. Excellent. So, we're all in this, we actually were all in this particular position. Now, Adam has, I find, a lot of the stuff that we've talked about tonight, has really surrounded, well, particularly in our last, our last hour, we're just seeing like the dysregulation of the Democratic Party, seeing like the old boomers and all of these people essentially publicly dysregulating before our very eyes. I mean, have you found yourself with any regrets with by leaving, or like what are you seeing?
I'm seeing a party that has been having an identity crisis. I think that the party, like the top percentage of the Democratic Party, the top 5%, the Democratic Party elite, they're the ones that have really been in control of the entire thing. Even if you think about the primaries back in 2016, they are not for going in the direction of democracy. They want to keep outsiders, even people who they don't perceive to be particularly establishment, like Bernie Sanders, out of the party. And I think they have forgotten that the people in the working class are the people who are supposed to be building up the party. It's supposed to be very like bottom up and not so much top down. And what I've seen on the Republican side is that they are more willing to go with the direction of democracy. Their party establishment, as much as I think that they don't like Trump, people like Liz Cheney, people who try to, go along the route of going along with Kamala Harris on the campaign trail. I think that those people did not want Trump in the party, but what they did not do, that the Democrats did, was try to keep Trump out of the their Republican National Convention. And they did not fix their elections to keep Trump out, basically. And they let their voters kind of decide what the future of the party was. And I think even now, with the Democrats trying to decide who the new face is of the Democratic Party, they are still in the mindset of like giving people scripts, giving people people to prop up. The media props up like Jasmine Crockett or AOC. There's a very scripted culture, I think, in the Democratic Party that is for control. And even the election of Joe Biden, I think, was emblematic of where the party stands. They want somebody who is controllable. They don't really like independent thinkers. And so I think realizing that is just really interesting. Even 2016 should tell you everything you need to know. The fact that they kept Bernie out of the party tells you where the party stands and how they don't want to listen to voters.
Yeah, they're over it. I mean, I've been saying this for months, that the Democrats are completely they're no longer interested in listening to regular people. That was actually one of the things that I wanted to discuss. Matter of fact, I'll bring it up now, because this is one of the last things I wanted to talk about. Our friend, our mutual friend, the Queen Apostate, was in the news this week. Oh, and there she is.
Wow.
There she is. Hold on a second. I'm just going to give her a second here. Coming to the stage is our mutual friend, an amazing lady, the Queen Apostate, our good friend, Miss Evan Barker. Hello, dear. Oh, you're muted. You're muted. You're muted. I can't hear you.
You just have to pantomime the whole rest of this.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Be like one of those people on stage with the Democrats when they're giving a speech and giving land acknowledgments.
Yeah, land acknowledgments and sign language and throwing up gang signs and shit. How you like that? Try again.
Hello.
There we
is.
go. All right. There we go. Yes.
But I feel like my good mic isn't on right now.
Oh no. Yeah, you're good, Mike. Yeah, I don't think you're the big one.
Yeah.
Okay. So, how are you? Yeah, it's not. Yeah, we're not getting anything.
Okay, that's fine. Hold on 1 second. I'm so sorry.
Okay. All right. We'll bring you. I'll drop you down. Just let me know when you're ready. Yeah. So Evan's been in the news lately. She actually went she went viral Friday, I believe, with quite a thread. Well, it wasn't a thread. It was like one or two. It was one or two posts, I believe. Evan, are you back?
I'm back. Sorry about that.
Okay. All right. So yeah, this is what I really wanted to go over towards the end, towards the end here. And let's see. Just pull it up here. Evan got some of the nastiest pushback for this post here. Let me just pull it up. And she says,
Evan.
"Oh, go ahead."
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Stop being poor.
Yeah, stop being. Yeah, that's exactly what this was. So the post reads, quote, Evan writes, no one in my family who voted for Trump owns any stocks. For all the rich Democrats panicking today, you now know how it must have felt when Jimmy Carter destroyed 400,000 trucking jobs. When Bill Clinton signed NAFTA, shipping jobs to Mexico and Canada, causing industry to board up in the middle of the country, left to rot. When he deregulated the finance industry and led us to the 2008 housing crisis. And when Obama told us, sorry, some jobs just aren't coming back. If you see this post, I hope you look in the mirror at some point today and recognize the destruction of your own party has played in the lives of working Americans. This is what Liberation Day is all about. No one is going to weep for your stock portfolio. Where were you when we lost our American dream? We needed that.
Yeah.
That was, that was fantastic. Fantastic. No.
Yes.
No.
Yes, Queen.
No. We don't do that.
Yes, Queen Apostate.
No.
Go ahead, girl.
You did that, Evan. Oh my gosh.
Not the snaps. Not the snaps. You leave that to the leftists. Leave that to them. They do that dumb shit at the protest. But Evan, what made you write that? Because I think you're up to like 2.6 million views now. What made you write that?
Struck a nerve, right? Especially for a post. I don't know. It was crazy. That's probably I've had a video go viral like that before, but that was my first just writing, that went viral, especially with not even having, I only have like 20,000 followers or something. So, but I wrote that post because I was watching the news and I was just seeing how people that I know in the Bay Area were reacting to Liberation Day, how they basically were just looking at Trump as if he's lost his mind. They didn't even really understand any of the reasoning or any of the backstory about the pain of people from my community. I'm originally from Missouri, that basically had their lives destroyed by bad trade policy. And that's why you see people like Sean Fain. He is the United Auto Workers president, who is an ardent Kamala Harris supporter, coming out and praising these tariffs and saying, thank God we finally have an administration that gives a shit about this. Because honestly, and I know in that post I was making a point about Democrats, and I did that purposely, and I can get into that in a minute, but this has been an issue that has been neglected by both parties. It's been both parties, the old Republican Party and the neoliberal Democratic Party, that has allowed this to happen, that has allowed manufacturing, has completely ceded manufacturing to China, has shipped jobs overseas, has allowed people's lives to be completely destroyed. Barack Obama was asked this question in 2012 when he was campaigning for his re-election campaign. He was asked by I believe it was an auto worker in Michigan who wanted to know, who told him a story about his job being sent to Mexico and wanting to know, what Obama was going to do. And basically, point blank, he said, jobs just aren't coming back. You're just going to have to find something else. And what there's these people on the coast, especially, not you guys, obviously, but a lot of these rich elite people, liberals that live on the coast that have never driven through the middle of the country, right? They have no context. They have no idea, or the South. Georgia has also been affected by NAFTA, where Audrey lives, but they've never ever seen these communities and the way that they're hollowed out, and the way that these used to be thriving towns where middle class, blue collar, working class people could thrive and live and have a piece of the American dream. They could buy a house on a salary with a job that they got without having a college degree. And that just doesn't exist. We basically traded all of our good trades and manufacturing jobs for service industry jobs in the United States. That's exactly what's happened. Jobs without benefits, jobs that pay very little, jobs that are underappreciated. And we've allowed ourselves, and J.D. Vance talks about this too. He says it's an issue of national security as well. We saw during COVID all these supply chain shortages that were happening because everything that we need, our medications, our chips, our technology, just all of these like basic things, the supplies that we need to build our cars and to build our ships for our military are all being manufactured elsewhere. And that's just stupid. And Donald Trump has seen this since the 1980s. He's been talking about this. It's pissed him off. He sees Americans getting ripped off. They call him the blue collar billionaire president for a reason. And that's because he sees it. He sees the pain and he gets it. And for once, we have a president that's actually fighting for these lost, forgotten people. And it pisses me off when I see liberals. And by the way, the Democrats used to support tariffs. Like there's a video that went viral of Nancy Pelosi talking about tariffs in 1996 and how but she was basically fighting back against NAFTA and what Bill Clinton signed off on. Mm-hmm. But they don't talk about this anymore because they're all enriched by it. They're all getting rich off of it. And they're all getting rich off of the destruction and the humiliation of working class people.
That's right.
That have no American dream anymore. And for once, we have a president who's willing to fight for them. And so it pissed me off to see all these people freaking out about their stock portfolios. When it's like, damn, like, do you understand the reason or what he's fighting for? And if you don't, let me tell you. And before you try to blame it all on Ronald Reagan, and yes, Ronald Reagan did play a hand. I'm not denying that. Like, I'm not. But Democrats did too. Just as much. It was a handshake agreement between both parties. And they like to just blame Republicans, and they refuse to see their own part in it. And that's why I wrote it. And it must have struck a nerve. I got so many heinous responses. The thing that struck me the most, and I know I've been talking for a while now, but I'll just say this. The thing that struck me the most about the post is the number of people that just did not believe me when I said that people in my family did not have retirements. That they just they couldn't fathom it. And I'm like, that tells me that there's something. And I looked at the people, I went and clicked on their profiles. 90% of them were liberals. Okay. And that tells me that they just they can't fathom it because it's not their reality. Like they don't know people like that. And guess what? I actually looked this up over the weekend because I'm like, am I crazy? Like, am I the one in the bubble that I just think that everyone's like my family? Well, I looked it up over the weekend, and the bottom half of this country, 47% of people between the ages of 65 and 69 as of 2023 had $0 in retirement. The bottom 50% of this country has nothing. That's the majority. There's if you look up, and then there's 10% of people had over 20,000, right? And then basically the higher up you go, the more basically the way that the chart works is that the smaller the percentage, the higher you get, basically, right? And so most of the wealth is concentrated in this one direction. Whereas the bottom, the majority of the people have nothing in retirement. So that's who Trump's fighting for. And I was listening to Besant earlier speak to Tucker Carlson about tariffs, and he literally says that. He's like, it's time for the bottom 40 to 45% of this country to get some relief because they've been squeezed and punished the longest.
Yeah. You know what I find funny, well, not funny, but rather ironic, is that when you try to tell people, I've literally tried to tell people that Trump represents a third way, because we wouldn't get this with a typical Republican. If this were a Paul Ryan, John McCrae, yeah, fuck that, right? Yeah, exactly. If this were like a Paul Ryan, oh God, I'm trying to think of, like, if this were a Mitch McConnell, somebody within the Republican establishment, we would not get any of what Trump is trying to do. That's one of the reasons why a lot of your establishment Republicans are fucking pissed. They're pissed at Trump. They didn't want him. They didn't support him. So,
do you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I want to say one thing, Evan. I gotta say, I look. You're worried about these people in flyover country and all that. You know, these 50, 60-year-old boomers who don't have a pension, they lose their jobs. Like, why don't they just learn how to code? Why don't they just learn how to code?
Why don't they just learn how to code? I got that. But that was like
code.
People.
So from our resident IT guy, Adam,
a DI officer.
What's your take on that, sir?
Just learn to code.
My take is I am not shocked whatsoever that was the response that she got. It was probably the number 2 reason why I said I was done with the Democratic Party. It's because it is now run by, or at least if they aren't this, they're tacitly cool with it. But it is primarily run by snobby elitists.
Yep.
It is run by people who have no idea what it's like to be broke, and that's fine. More power to you. You've never been broke before.
Yeah.
But man, do you like to stomp on people who are just trying to come up a little bit.
Exactly.
And you know, this whole, and that's the whole thing with the Black people, and we care so much about Black people and the prosperity. No, you don't. You don't give a shit. You don't give a shit about someone unless they're within your tax bracket or live in your neighborhood. Those are the only people that you appear to care about.
Or you can use them for political purpose.
Right.
Not even then.
Yeah.
No. I would argue even then. Think of this, and this is where I gotta come in. I live in Brownsville, Brooklyn. Okay, I have told this story before. There are several homeless shelters in this neighborhood, around near my house. Okay, at least 3. The last 2 years, the people, like the families who were in those homeless shelters, got booted out, and then just to be replaced by illegals during the whole migrant crisis. Okay,
that's so fucked up.
You do not put.
That is so fucked up.
The new political underclass.
Brownsville is a majority like West Indian neighborhood. Okay, it's Black. It is lower middle class to working class. Okay, there are people, there are cops that live here, firefighters, transit workers, the whole bit. Okay, we are that bottom 50 that has like nothing in savings. Right, the bottom that has nothing, they don't make enough to save anything. Right,
they just have debt.
Right, we just have debt, credit cards, student loans, personal loans, shit like that. Right. The political party that was supposed to have our back is the one that basically threw us the fuck overboard when it was politically convenient. And the reason why they did that is because we as a race, I'm saying black folk could no longer be trusted to vote in the 90th percentile for Democrats because of people like us. Okay, because they wanted their cake. I have never in my life seen an entire political party so disloyal to their own voters, throwing away an entire voter base for something that they think is a sure thing, that they've got to game the system.
Yeah,
they've got to game the system and turn everything around just to accommodate these people who they're just sure that if they just keep giving them free shit, free housing, free food, free this, free that, they'll vote. They will continue to vote for this political party like a dog would their master. It pisses me off. It's dehumanizing as hell.
They traded working class people, black, brown, white, any working class person. They traded them for the professional class and suburban voters. That's exactly what they did. They put
Suburban voters?
Yeah, suburban voters. Like they basically traded the working class for the suburbs.
Upper middle class. Yep.
I'm from Baltimore. Okay, Baltimore, Maryland, which I talked about this in a video I made this last week. Sparrows Point was the home, which is a area in southeast Baltimore County, was the home of Bethlehem Steel. Bethlehem Steel was was at one point the largest steel mill in the United States. Baltimore as a region had like 3 or 4 steel mills. There was Bethlehem Steel, then there was Baltimore Specialty Steel, that was not too far from where I grew up in northeast Baltimore City. Bethlehem Steel employed generations of black middle class Americans. Both of my grandfathers, my mother's father and my father's and my father's stepfather, worked for Bethlehem Steel. One of my uncles on my dad's side worked for Bethlehem Steel. I'm just telling you, I'm going by this line by line. My first wife's father worked for Bethlehem Steel. That's how deep this goes.
And they could have a middle class life working for a steel company.
And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Once them steel mills got gutted, because the NAFTA, cheaper steel elsewhere around the world, Baltimore's gutting was Baltimore's deindustrialization was finally complete.
Yeah.
If you go there are parts of my hometown right now that look like a fucking bomb went off 30 years ago.
Same. Yeah, the town my dad was born in is St. Joseph, Missouri, which actually is where Marshall Mathers was born. Everyone thinks he was born in Detroit, but he was born in St. Joe. But yeah, if you go there, it was once a booming town. It's about an hour north of Kansas City. So it's kind of away from a big city. It's kind of like in the country, but there's about 100,000 people that live there. And it used to be this incredible place with like factories. And, my grandpa worked there for a candy company. And yeah, my dad sold candy too, but, and they, now if you go there, it literally looks like a bomb went off, like in parts of it, like a huge part of it, actually. Like there's like the buildings are just, they're boarded up. There's no jobs there. There's no hope there. Like it's extremely fucked up. There was a Harley Davidson plant there where they were still making Harley Davidsons, and they shut that down about 4 years ago.
Jesus.
And there was about like another 1,000 jobs that were lost.
It's like they can't catch a break.
No.
It's like working people. Yeah, it's like working people
no
literally cannot catch a break.
People wonder why Slim Shady is the way he is.
Yeah, I mean, he grew up rough, but I mean, it's but
Understatement.
I mean, yeah, but like, I don't know. It's just, it's fucked up. And so I want people to understand why this is happening, why Donald Trump won the working class the way that he did, and to just understand. And I feel like that there's so much pressure mounting right now. There's so much hysteria. There's so many people saying like, you know, this is like the worst thing in the world and the stock market's going to fall. We're going to go into a depression. And I feel like it's all like a scare tactic to try to get basically to try to get Trump to cave. And it pisses me off.
Yeah, it seems like he's just ripping the Band-Aid off of something that we have to do, and just nobody wanted to do it. They just keep on passing the buck down the line, and
they were managing the decline.
Yeah,
Like we were a nation in decline, and they were just managing it, putting Band-Aids on.
Yeah,
you need to be more self-sufficient. We can't rely on our enemies to, you know, for resources we need, for products we need, medicine, you name it. We can't do that, obviously. So, and energy, stuff like that. It's like, we got to do this. I mean, obviously we're in so much accumulating debt. We have to do something like this. We have to do something drastic.
Audrey, your thoughts?
How they've also just been like funneling money into USAID. Like, I don't know about you guys. I love Morocco. I love pottery. I don't think we need Moroccan pottery classes to be funded with US taxpayer dollars, which is a true story. I don't think we need Sesame Street in Iraq. You know, I mean, these things that quote unquote that quote unquote
don't think so.
Further, you know, United States interests are not actually in the interest of the American people. And I think sometimes we wonder, you know, where do all these people go who go to these, you know, great schools, who get some kind of degree in like colonial basket weaving, you know, and they get jobs in places like USAID to create some of these projects, which are like the fantasy work of certain liberals that come from, you know, New York, California, you know, these crazy places, these elite schools, which by the way, don't pay federal income tax, yet will charge you like full tuition to go to these schools. And these are the people that are supposed to care about you, when really what they're doing is ripping you off, and also just using taxpayer funded dollars to fund all these projects that are overseas. And just really managing the decline, like you all were saying, which is absolutely ridiculous.
It's to your point, Audrey, too. I think it's interesting that, like, you know, the universities are really kind of trying to push like Marxist stuff, neo-Marxist ideology. Basically, people like blaming the system, blaming rich people, or blaming, actually more so blaming white people now in Western culture, colonization, right? And it's like they have no problem at all giving, you know, offering you these useless, absolutely useless PhDs or degrees on colonial stuff and CRT stuff and gender theory shit. And they have no issue at all putting you in a mortgage of debt. Young people, high school kids, and who are just graduating, in a mortgage of debt, teaching them things that are not going to help them whatsoever.
Right.
No
and
problem.
They blame the system on that. I mean, if there is a system to blame, and it's the university system and the people who are pushing that, the administrative bureaucracy of universities and how they're associated with high schools or whatever. But that is the system to look at. They need to look in the fucking mirror.
That's why it pissed me so much.
Pardon my French.
That's why it pissed me off so much. I just want to say this real quick. When Democrats wanted to push debt-free college, because they wanted to do that. They wanted to wipe all this debt away. But they didn't actually want to tie it to any reform. They didn't want to tie it to like the schools not being able to charge as much. Like, they didn't actually want to address the root problem. They just wanted to do a giveaway to their base, which is the college educated. So anyway, that's bad. I wanted to share really quick before we go into the space, just a couple of the responses that I got from this post, because I screen capped some of the best ones. So my first one is, hey, Evan, you're a cunt.
So nice.
See you next Tuesday.
So many, only like liberal.
What happened to empowering women and uplifting women's voices?
No, it's never women, and it's never conservative people. It's always liberal men, you guys, that love to call me the C word. Like, love it. Yeah, it's really interesting. And then you go to their profile, and one of them was like, it said girl dad And I was like, wow, okay. So okay,
Nice
this
example.
guy says, oh, so meaning your family contributed zero to the country, but feast off the contributions of others. To which I replied, it means no one went to college. I'm a first generation college student, you know? Like my grandparents, my mom, like my dad, nobody went to college. Aunts, uncles, no. And they worked jobs where they lived paycheck to paycheck and were never able to save enough to invest. My grandma worked at JCPenney's for $5 an hour. Like that was like her last job. You know, before she went on Social Security. They lived in mobile homes. They eventually had to sell. My grandma had to sell her mobile home in 2020-ish because her lot payment got too high. Like it got higher than rent. And so she had to sell it. When they sold the mobile homes, she took her money that she had racked up credit card debt because the cost of living was so high. And from prices going up and Social Security checks virtually staying the same. Remember, Obama froze the increase of Social Security checks for 3 fucking years. Seniors didn't see an increase at all. And I'm the first one to break the cycle. I went to college with Pell Grants and loans. And this person replies, sounds like it's a lot of trash. So that's a fucking excuse for laziness, generationally poor. So your family has been lazy and stupid for generations. How did one family get so fucking retarded? Anyway,
I saw that one. That's ridiculous. And you know what? I blame. My
grandma works harder than any of them. I guarantee you. My grandma was a hard ass worker.
Adam, were you going to say something, brother?
No.
Oh, okay. What angers me the most about this is that these people all have an idea of what white people are supposed to be. They all think white people are the ones who they're used to seeing all day long. Okay, that every white person's rich, every white person went to college, every white person's driving a Bentley or something like that, while the rest of them are driving fucking Hondas and Chevys. Okay. Yeah. I have been in places where the exact opposite is true. If you go, like, it's like the sight of a middle class, like a middle class white guy working, you know, at the firehouse in Baltimore County. That to some of these people online, and it's impossible for them to even fathom. It's like when I talk to these fucking idiots who are like these anti-car bike lane assholes. Okay. They cannot fathom the idea of a working class person having a car and driving to their job at McDonald's. Okay. No. They can't fathom it. They think that
why would you work at McDonald's?
Right, exactly. Why would you work at McDonald's? That's how they fucking operate. But the other part is they think that if you're poor, you're just supposed to have a car. And again, the idea that there are white people out here, that there are middle class folks living in deindustrialization zones who are suffering on a daily basis, who then take a look at the party that they might have been voting for on a regular fucking basis, throw them overboard, and act like they don't even exist. The biggest wake-up call I had to this was watching David Axelrod, basically, after Hurricane Helene blew through, after Hurricane Helene blew through North Carolina and Tennessee, basically saying, well, you know, these Trump voters might have a lot more difficulty getting to the polls. You know,
he was happy about it.
They're saying this, right, gleeful about it, as these people are freezing to death, as these people are living in wet homes and or tents. Every earthly possession now has a permanent squish to it. If it ain't floated down the river,
And didn't FEMA like have a directive to not go to Trump supporting homes or something like that?
They absolutely did. They absolutely
Because they
did.
might be hostile or something. It's like, oh my fucking God, dude.
They make it right. They made
Yeah,
you.
good
They make you. They make you jump through the hoops to maybe get $750, and then they send another $2-3 billion over to Ukraine.
Yeah, or anywhere else on Earth.
Right. That's who we've been dealing with. Yeah. Anyways, it has been an absolute pleasure to have all of you here. We are going to now move into we're now going to move into our space where you can ask all sorts of questions. We apologize for the lateness, but I want to thank Mr. Adam Coleman for coming on to my show. There is one last thing that I do want to say before we go. Adam, my family's yours, brother. And I mean that from the bottom of my fucking heart. Like from the day I met you, I knew that you were somebody very, very special. You are one of the most talented young men I have ever met in my entire life. I am thankful to stand side by side with you. You and your wife and your son are welcome at my table and at Kareen and I's table anytime, bro. And I mean that. We got your back and we love you, man. Thank you all for coming for joining us tonight. Again, you can support the show at buymeacoffee.com/apostate radio. Please be sure to follow Miss Audrey McNeil, and our queen apostate Evan Barker. Yes, God damn it, you are the queen apostate. Okay,
like make a crown or something.
Yeah.
I'll wear it next time. Next time at the show, I'll delusionally show up with this giant ass crown. You guys.
There you go.
You should do that. I'd actually appreciate that if you did that. Sometimes I want to wear a crown.
There you go.
So.
Thank you to Mr. Nostra Chavez for holding us down, and we will see you all later next week. We've got a big show as well. We'll have more information on that. But again, thank you.
Follow Adam Coleman too. WrongSpeak.
Yes,
WrongSpeak. Buy his fucking book. Buy his book.
Buy his book.
Buy
yes,
it now.
Buy his book. Yes,
I
The Children We Left Behind, guys.
The Children
an audiobook
we
too,
left behind. Matter of fact, when is it going on audiobook, Adam?
I'm gonna put a pre-order.
Within a couple of weeks. It was just loaded last week.
Let me know, Adam.
Who's reading it?
I'll share that. I'm definitely reading it.
Who's reading it?
Peter Feliciano.
Peter Feliciano. Really?
I started it.
Oh, nice. Okay. No. I was talking about the audiobook. Like, who's reading the audiobook?
You can't read an audiobook.
No, I mean.
Oh, I know what you mean. Sorry.
Okay.
I used to be blonde, Isaiah. Okay.
Good night, everybody, and thanks for watching. We'll see you. Join us over in the space in a few minutes.
Come to the space, guys.
Yeah, we will
Isaiah
see you all
Carter.
soon. Yes, sir.